Hi, I'm Pat McClure, and I'm a researcher, writer, and editor volunteering at West Virginia Archives of History. I'd like to tell you about a special project I'm working on, the Veterans Memorial Project. But first, I'd like to introduce you to one of my subjects. This is Sullivan John Africano. Sullivan John was in the U.S. Army in World War II. His last name may be a giveaway. He was born in West Virginia, in Monongalia County, the county Morgantown is in. But his parents were Italian Americans, and his father was a coal miner. Sullivan John completed grammar school and went on to Riverside Junior High School. In 1940, Sullivan John married Mary Patrick, and in 1942, they had a son, John Sullivan Africano. That same year, Sullivan John joined the Army, and so the family was separated as he went off to war. Private Africano became part of the 83rd Chemical Mortar Battalion, which first went to Africa. Next, they were part of the invasion of Sicily, an island off the coast of Italy, and they prepared for the invasion of Italy. At midnight on January 24, 26, 1944, the ship his unit was on, an LST-422, experienced an explosion. Now, that explosion could have been on the ship itself because it carried a lot of ammo, or it could have been caused by a torpedo. But the commander of the ship, who did survive the incident, believes they were hit by a mine, which is an explosive device. Some of the unit were rescued, but many went down with the ship, including Private Africano. It's interesting that he is memorialized on the tablets of the missing at the Nettuno, Rome American Cemetery in Italy because of his parents' Italian connection. He's also memorialized at a cemetery in New York thanks to his son, where his wife and John Sullivan ended up living, as well as on the West Virginia Veterans Memorial. So he will not be forgotten. But how do I know so much about Sullivan John Africano, who died in 1944? Well, at West Virginia Archives, I found a lot of documents about him, including a book about the 83rd Chemical Mortar Battalion. But I really got lucky when I Googled his name and ended up finding his son in New York, who gave me a lot more information. Guess what? I was able to tell him something about his father he didn't know. Sullivan John was fluent in Italian because he was brought up in a household where the family spoke that language. And he was able to help the Army interrogate Italian Sicilian prisoners when the Army invaded that island. How proud John Sullivan Africano was of his dad. Private Sullivan John Africano is just one of the more than 10,000 veterans whose names are carved on the West Virginia Veterans Memorial at the Capitol Complex in Charleston. In part one, I introduced you to a veteran whose name is etched on the West Virginia Veterans Memorial. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the memorial itself. This is it, in question-answer format. Where is the memorial located? It's in Charleston, near the state capitol building. For your information, it's a piece of architecture that I believe equals the beauty of the many memorials in Washington, D.C. While it's beautiful in the daytime, I think it gets even better at night with red, white, and blue lighting. The memorial is surrounded by a reflecting pool, and at various holidays, people who visit it leave wreaths in memory of their loved ones, and sometimes they plant flags around the memorial. Who designed the Veterans Memorial? It was designed by an artist named Joseph Mullins in the 1990s. How many names are on the West Virginia Veterans Memorial? The Veterans Memorial commemorates more than 10,000 West Virginians who lost their lives during wars of the 20th century. That means from 1900 to 2000. They were World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. There are also some who lost their lives in the 1990s in the Gulf Wars. It's likely, but not certain, that veterans post-2000, like those who lost their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan, will be memorialized in some way. Who decides whose names went on the memorial? An exhaustive research process took place at West Virginia Archives using newspaper articles and other documents, as well as input from families who lost loved ones. The staff at Archives did their best to identify all those who were eligible, but since the initial carving on the memorial, a small number have been found and added. What's special about the design of the memorial? Well, the inside of it is black granite with the names of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines etched into the stone. The outside is limestone with figures that represent the 4 periods of conflict and also the 4 branches of service. A female soldier is depicted off to the side. At one time, only 13 women were represented on the memorial, but that may have changed somewhat as additional casualties have been identified. How can we find out more about those veterans whose names are on the memorial? West Virginia Archives has an electronic database and also a paper folder on each one. There are lots of other documents at Archives to help with the research. There are also search tools on Archives computers that most people don't have at home. Anything else? We're trying to write biographies of all the veterans on the memorial. Many have been written by high school students and a few by elementary students. But 10,000 or more names, that's a big order. It's the least we can do for these folks who have sacrificed their lives for their country.